Well, good evening, everybody. I hope you're well. I hope you found us. I hope you can hear me. Please pop a comment so I know you're with me and we can get started. I don't seem to have access to any comments. Oh, here we are. I think we're all right. Okay. So, tonight we're going to be looking at some answers to some questions that I've had posed. So, this is going to be really interesting. I have got such a lot of ground to cover, but I'm going to do my best to give you all a little bit of inspiration, hopefully some solutions, some suggestions. We'll see how we go. But honestly, I could talk for the rest of my life and not answer all your questions. But we will do our best, as I've said. So, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm very excited to be back. Hi Bethan and Lynn and all of you. It's so lovely to have people taking the time out to come and join us with these lives. It's really lovely to be able to engage with you all. So we'll give everybody a few minutes to pop in and we'll get started. But yeah, as I was saying, I decided tonight we would try to do a bit of a Q&A session. If any of you had any particular queries or problems you'd faced and things you wanted a bit of help with. So I have had to pre-prepare these, so I'm afraid I can't answer any new questions tonight. As I say, I've already got loads to cover, but hopefully you'll enjoy it and hopefully you'll all pick up some tips from what I have to show you. So I'm very excited. I love this kind of thing. There's no particular theme, no rhyme, no reason, just good old crafting. So, hi Catherine, hi Christiane, I hope I'm saying that properly. Hi Kim. So yeah, we've got some people here who have asked questions. So I'm glad you've come. Otherwise, you know, I might be talking to myself, mightn't I? And that wouldn't be any good. All right. So how are you all feeling about the changes that have occurred within our circle? Oh, sorry. Is it Christiane? Is that better? Or is it Christiane? I'm so sorry. It's a very beautiful name. So yeah, the changes that Jamie's announced, aren't they exciting? He has acquired creative expressions and he's put it at the top of the tree to give it the impetus it needs to get that brand back into everybody's consciousness, and I think that's lovely. Oh, thank you. So Christiane, yeah, I'll try and remember that. Apologies for not knowing. So yeah, I mean, he's been on Handmade Crafts today. What a fabulous set of shows he put on there. Hi Jackie. As I've said, I can't answer new questions tonight. I'm so sorry. I did ask people to pre-ask because obviously I need time to prepare things. I'm on my own. I don't have a little Pete in another little room to run around and fetch things for me. So sadly, I can only deal with pre-asked questions. Oh, I've lost everything now. Oh dear. Here we are. I'm back. But we will do more of these. So in future, you know, if you do see that I'm asking for questions ahead of time, then that's the time to get them in, and then I can tackle them. Otherwise, I'd be here for 12 years, so we can't do that, can we? And I'm not sure how much I can cram into an hour or an hour and a half, but we will do our best. So I'm going to make a start with the question that Christiana asked me, and this was about the gemstones glitter. and she wanted to know, how can you apply glitter to a stamped image? I think that was the basis of the question. But I think I can show you lots of other ways to use the glitters as well. So that's where I'm going to start. We're going to get all sparkly and Christmassy and not Christmassy and all sorts of lovely things using Jamie's Gemstones glitter. So let's get started. So here we are. These are Jamie's Gemstones glitter, and they are absolutely beautiful colours. They are super, super sparkly. The glitters in these little bottles match the glitters in the Gemstones texture paste as well. It is the same glitter. However, you can mix these into texture paste to make your own. So I'm going to show you that. But I'm going to start with the first question that Christiana asked me. Hi, Christine. Hi, Delightful. Hi, Jackie. Yes, we're all wishing Jamie the best, aren't we? I mean, it is a brave move, and it's quite scary, I'm sure. It's a big responsibility, but I'm sure he'll absolutely make a success of it, because he is amazing. Right, so back to where we're going. So I've got a little picture here, a stamped image and die cut of Mrs. Christmas, or Mrs. Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus. And I wanted to show how it's so simple to actually make things sparkly. So I've already coloured this in because I wanted to glitter the white around her outfit. So we've got, presumably it's like white fur. The way I like to do it is to use a quickie glue pen. This is the simplest, most accurate and quickest way to do it. But I am going to show you another way as well. So I'm just going to change my specs. So the quickie glue pen, if you've never seen one, has a super fine ballpoint end, and it's a two-way glue. So that means it's blue when you apply it, and that will give you a permanent bond if you stick things together with it at that stage. But if you apply it to a surface and leave it till it's gone clear, then it actually gives you a repositionable bond, which means you can stick things down and remove them again. So it's a fantastic glue, and I really love it. But I'm going to be using obviously the diamond white and my quickie glue pen just to get this ball rolling, if you'll excuse the pun. So what you do with these, just work in little circular motions till the glue's flowing, and then you literally just colour in with the glue as you would with any colouring pen. Don't try and work too quickly, because these pens, they have a little valve in the end in here, and it controls the flow, and if you go too quickly it can't keep up, and so it will stop, you know, it'll come out too slowly. Alright, but because you've got that two-way effect with the glue, you don't have to worry about being super quick to get the glitter on, but you get a better bond if you apply it while that glue is still blue. So let's shake on the glitter. And then tap it off. And now it will have a slightly blue tint because the glue is still blue, but once that's gone off it will be white. So can you see that lovely sparkle and how it's given that lovely fluffy edge to her hat? Isn't it stunning? I absolutely love this. Now if you don't have a quickie glue pen, and I can hear you all shouting at me saying, Gwen, I haven't got one, don't panic. Never panic. There's never any need to panic. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in some water, and I'm going to get Jamie's Dries Clear glue, and I'm going to put a little bit onto one of the blending mats. Okay. And then I'm just going to wet my brush. The only reason I wet my brush first is so that it protects it a little bit from getting caked up with the glue. It also helps to keep the glue quite fluid. Alright, but then I'm going to squeeze the excess water out, And now what I'm going to do is simply pick up some glue and paint the next area. Now it's much harder to see because it's white when it goes on and it dries clear. But again, if you've missed a little bit, when you realise when it's dried, and do let it dry, then you can go back and just touch up any areas that you might have just accidentally skipped. So we can paint in the area with glue. Do put your brush straight into water, otherwise it will obviously ruin your brush. Right, let's tap on, and there we are. Can you see? So I've done one side of the collar but not the other, and you can see that lovely sparkle, and it's perfectly covered. And as long as you stay within the lines, it's going to be absolutely fine. But even if you go over a little bit, it won't matter, because the glitter, when it's very thin, will actually allow the line to show through. So that's not the end of the world. But if you do struggle to stay within lines, you could always heat emboss the outline of the stamp. So with some black ink and clear embossing powder, and that would give you a little wall, and that would prevent you going outside. If you do struggle, perhaps your hands aren't so steady, or you're just not great in colouring in, that's another solution. And if you really do go over the line, then while the glue's still wet, you can get something that has a little point on it and just gently scrape any that's gone where you don't want it. Okay, so that's how I would fill in on a stamped image. So that's two ideas there. Another idea would be to decant some of the dries clear glue, and I've got a little glue bottle here with a fine metal nozzle and a stainless steel pin. It must be a stainless steel pin, otherwise it's going to rust, and that will actually seal your nozzle shut, and that's never good. So with this, again, we can use it just like a pen. It's got such a fine nozzle, and it just lets out a tiny bead of glue, and then we can just do little circular motions to fill in the area. This is possibly easier even than with the paintbrush, because you can see it better, it goes on slightly thicker. So once you've covered that area, always put your pin back in your bottle, and again tap on the glue. Just tap off any excess, and there we've got the other side of the collar sparkled. So that's 3 different ways that you can do it onto a stamped image. So I hope that helps, and I hope one of them will give you the solution that will suit your style. All right, now I did want to just show one other thing. The way I love to use white glitter when we're coming to Christmas, and I've got here a piece of white card, and I want it to create, or imagine I want to create some snowy hills. So I've got some plain old copy paper here, and I've ripped it to give myself 2 different edges, and then I'm going to create my hills on this piece of card. Let's do it this way. So I can decide where these hills are going to sit and how they're going to look, and then I'm going to use these like a mask. And so to do this, I'm going to bring in Jamie's quick dry pigment ink. This one's the Blue Emperor, and I just want it very, very faint. So I'm taking off the excess ink on my scrap paper. I'm going to use my first mask, and I'm just going to gently sweep away from the edge of the paper. Now, you don't need to apply very heavy ink when you're doing this. Less is more, because it's amazing how much goes down with just a very light touch. So don't think that if you can't see it, nothing's happening, because actually, if you can see it really clearly, you've probably gone a bit heavy. And that's something that I find most crafters struggle to get right. But don't forget, if you've gone light, you can always add more, but if you've gone way too heavy, you can't get rid So there we are, we've got our first snowy edge, and we've got a little bit of shade, and just a very sort of soft dusty sky appearing above there. And then what I'm going to do is bring in my second hill line, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm not even going to add any more ink to my brush, and I'm just pushing away from the edge of the paper. The reason I'm not sort of going in circles and coming towards is, if I come towards, I'll probably lift the paper, and if I go in circles, it'll get way too heavy. So this is a lovely effect because it gives you real dimension. It also gives you shadows within the snow. It's really quite cool, and it's so easy to achieve. If you move your mask like I did, you can just pop it back, not a problem, because it's really clear where it's been. So I'll just go a little bit darker at the sides here. And I just want a little bit more strength just at the sides there. Okay, take away the mask, and we've got two snowy hill lines. Now the reason I've done all that is because I want to add some snowy sparkle to this. And I love snow because it has that little dusting of sparkle. It's not really strong, it's not really intense, but it's so pretty. And I am going to take my quickie glue pen, and I'm just going to follow the line I've created with my mask just along the top line of the snow. This is probably going to be really tricky to see when I hold it up for you, but hopefully you will understand what I'm doing and where I'm going with this. So that's just one line done, and now I can just tap on this glitter. I can almost shake it down the card and it will stick where that glue pen has lined it. Now it's going to be really difficult to see, but there's a really beautiful subtle sparkle along the top of that snow, and then you can do the same with the other one as well, and it just adds a really beautiful crystal sparkle to the snow. Okay, so that's another way I like to apply some glitter, especially when we're getting towards Christmas. Now I'm just going to gather back some of this glitter before it gets everywhere. Okay, let's move on and do a couple of more involved projects then. So how are we all doing? If you haven't got a blending brush, what would I recommend? Well, you can certainly use the blending foam applicators, but you have to be a little bit even more careful with those because they will apply it much more heavily. I have still some of the old rectangular ones which I still like. I still use these. You could use, if you really haven't got anything like that, you could use some cut and dry foam, which comes on a sheet almost A4 size, and it has a black foam rubber backing and a white foam, and it's very dense foam. And I like this for blending when I want to do the edge of petals and the edge of cardstock and things like that, when I want to get into more intricate areas. But it's really good because you can just rinse this out and use it again. So you could use that. There are all sorts of ways of blending. You could use a cotton wool or a makeup sponge. They're really good for blending as well. What else have I used? Cotton buds. Smoothies. Have you come across the sort of egg-shaped smoothies? They're really nice for blending. But it depends on where you want to blend. If you want to be quite accurate and you're only doing a very small area, then I'd recommend the cut and dry. You can also buy things called blending sticks, or they're also known as tortillons, or paper stumps. They're great for getting into fine detail as well. So there are loads of alternatives. A washing up sponge, possibly, but you'd want to cut it up into smaller bits. So yeah. Okay, let's have a look then at some other ways to use glitter and things that I like to do. Because I thought it was a nice way to get the evening started and show you some techniques. So I have here a piece of white card, and then I have some of Jamie's double-sided adhesive, and I've cut these to size, so they're 4 inches wide, 8 1/4 tall, if that matters. And I'm going to take one of the protective papers off the adhesive, okay, and I'm just going to fold back the corner. I always find if I'm applying a large sheet of this to a large sheet of card, then I prefer to not chance it and get it stuck in the wrong place. So I just reveal a corner. That way I can line up really carefully with the rest of it, making sure I've lined it up properly, and then stick that corner down, and then all I need to do is go underneath and pull out the rest of the backing paper. Okay, and then just cut off any excess if there is any. Most of this is actually just the little border that's supplied with the sheets to make life a little easier for getting them off. So just take that off. And then what I'm going to do, I'm working on the sticky side of this. So this is the double-sided adhesive on the front here. And what I'm going to do next is apply a stencil to it. So you need to protect your stencil, because if you stick your stencil straight onto that double-sided adhesive there, it will stick much too firmly, and then when you're trying to get it off, you either won't be able to, or it will damage your stencil. So if you take a Versamark ink pad and then coat your stencil with it, and I do this by pressing and twisting, and make sure you cover every section of that stencil, and don't worry, it will just rinse off afterwards. It's like a glittering type material, this, so it just dissolves in water, and then that will stop your stencil from sticking too firmly onto the double-sided adhesive. Okay, I'm already getting in a pickle here. Right, so now I'm going to take the other side off my double-sided adhesive. So just find a corner and lift that away. So now I'm revealing the sticky adhesive sheet that's down there. I'm going to take this all away. I need to try and keep my fingers off as much as possible. So this is the side that I've just put the Versamark onto. That needs to go against the sticky sheet. So pop that down, and then the backing sheet that came off is always really helpful for pressing down any fine sections of the stencil, making sure they're all flat, and that way everything's safe. Okay, and now this is what I'm going to work with. So I call this double glitter technique, and it's a beautiful technique, but you don't have to be using it with just glitter. You can use all sorts of different particles. So that might be gilding flake, it might be embossing powder, it might be beads, it can be all sorts of anything that's a particle. So I'm going to work on glitter because that's what we're talking about today. So I'm going to sprinkle on this amazing amethyst glitter, and then I'm going to use a brush just to spread it around a little bit so that I don't get my fingers on the sticky adhesive, because if you get your fingers on it, it does sometimes damage it and lose its tack, because our fingers have natural oils in them, and also it means I'm not putting loads and loads of glitter on. I can just use exactly what I need. But then I would always recommend burnishing it with your finger, because that helps more of it to stick. So rub, rub, rub all over, can see that beautiful colour. It's amazing. Now my edge here is sticky, so I'm just going to put a little bit on that just so I stop sticking to it. Now the key thing with this technique is to be really, really careful even, with your cleaning up process. You have to get all the loose glitter off the stencil. If you don't, when you take your stencil away, those little loose specks will jump into the open spaces that are still there on the sticky sheet when you've taken your stencil off, and then that kind of spoils the effect a bit. So I get most of what I can off the loose, and then I get a cloth, and actually I usually use a Swiffer cloth, but I forgot to get mine out. Or you can use like a tumble dryer sheet or something like that. But just make sure you really, really carefully clean all the loose bits. This is the key part, to be honest, of the technique, is the cleaning up. Because as I say, if you don't do it, then it kind of spoils the effect of the next step. Definitely a Swiffer cloth or a tumble dryer sheet is better than kitchen paper, which I'm trying to use here. Okay, we'll have to manage with that. And then I'm just going to pick up what I can from my mat. So it's, again, I don't want any stray purple glitter because I'm going to use white glitter next. So any colour would contaminate the white, and I would always recommend that you use the darker colour first, because if you use the white first and then put the darker colour on, it will contaminate the white. No matter how well you've applied it and how well you've rubbed it and stuck it, there are always little bits that get in there. So I'm going to take this off very carefully, and you can see it comes away quite nicely with having had that coating of the Versamark ink. So I've just dropped my stencil in the water, and now I've got purple glittered flowers, but all of this is still the double-sided adhesive sheet. So now I can bring in the white crystal glitter, the diamond white, and I'm going to completely coat the rest of this with white. So, and you might think it's using a lot, but actually it uses surprisingly little. And let's face it, you're getting such a lot in these pots. I mean, 50ml of glitter. I don't think I've ever used a pot of glitter up in my life, even with doing this. So don't worry. I always feel it's a shame that we buy things and we don't use them because we want to keep them. I think, why? Why did you buy it? Play with it, get it used, it's fun. And there we are. Double glittered stenciled design. How pretty is that? And you can do this, as I say, I could have done the glitter first, and then instead of using the crystal glitter, I could have used some silver gilding flake. I could have used a black embossing powder or anything. I've got some very fine mica, any mica powder you can do it with as well. But that cleaning up in between the two stages is the key, and it is so, so important. So that's our panel. Obviously you can trim off any sort of random bits that you don't want, and then that panel is ready to work with. Okay, so just let me have a bit of a clean up here. I'll pop the glitter back in the bottles. As you can see, I work on a piece of paper and then I just tap it back into the jar. Make a little funnel on the paper. Try to hit the bottle, not like I just did. It's lively, I'll give it that. And if you do find you've got mixed glitter on your sheet, then don't put that back in your bottle, because obviously that will contaminate your colours as well. So let's just get that back in. Okay, lovely. lids on, otherwise I'll be wearing that. Alrighty. So I hope you'll have a go at some of these suggestions. I mean, it's all well and good, you know, we can give you all the tips in the world, but if you don't go away and practice with them, then it's a shame, because you're not putting it into practice. And you sometimes, you know, I know it's a bit scary when you're doing stuff you're not familiar with, but have a go. I've never had a fear of trying something, and I guess that's why I've learnt as much as I have. I've learnt what not to do as well, as you do. Oh dear. Right, pop that down. Okay. So, next. I'm not going to stop and say hello much tonight, because as I say, I've got an awful lot to get through. So, apologies if I've not spoken to you or said hello, but I will at some point come back. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, I've got here a piece of amethyst card. Now, I've done this because sometimes having the same colour underneath can actually richen the colour of the glitter. But Jamie's glitters are coloured glitters, so they do actually hold their own. So even on white card, it's going to look equally good. So I wanted to create a border of the same colour of glitter. So I've used double-sided tape. I have used the super sticky, but you don't have to. You can do this on ordinary double-sided tape. It was just that I had the right width in this one. And I'm just going to show you how I edge a piece of card. So once I've got one strip down, I turn the end back so that I'm sticking tape to tape and not tape over the backing of the tape, if that makes sense. And then it makes it so much easier to peel off when you need to get it off. And I'm going under that one as well. And then I just get my scissors, cut off any bits that are hanging over, and get rid of those. Now I know I've done this before, but you probably weren't all here then, so there's no harm doing it again, is there? And then if I bring back my paper for my purple, and then I can take away the backing for the tape. And find the loose end. There we are. And again, you just sprinkle that along the tape. Obviously going to do all four sides, but I've got one I've done earlier. I tend to just work in smallish sections because you can spread the glitter quite a long way. Oh, it's gorgeous, this colour, really rich. Just give it a flick, and there you have a beautifully edged piece of card. Now this is going to create the mat for what I'm working on, so I'm not too fussed about having that all perfect, because I can show you the one I've done earlier. Just going to pop this out of the way. Right, so here's the one I've already done, and I've already mounted this onto a folded card. So there's that beautiful sparkly border. Look how sparkly these are, gorgeous. Alright, so that's our mat done, ready for our floral panel. And I've got a floral panel here, which I've already cut down to size. So look at that now. Ooh, it's gorgeous. I've got tape on here already. I'm going to take this off. One thing I would say, normally if I'm going on top of glitter, I would always use wet glue, because double-sided tape just doesn't like it. It doesn't stick to it particularly well, and it will come off and it will bring the glitter with it. So I would always recommend glue, but because the tape is going to sit mostly on here, it's fine. So I'm just going to line this up and pop it onto there, like so. So there we've got the beginnings of a really pretty card, haven't we? Press that down. Alright, and it's all sparkly, it's all lovely. You see? And it all matches, which is perfect. And then I thought, well, it doesn't really need much doing. I didn't want to cover it all up. I didn't want more flowers because I've got flowers here. So I thought just a simple sentiment will do the job. So, more techniques with glitter. Here I have one of Jamie's wonderful sentiment die sets. And this one isn't the correct border for the Happy Birthday that I'm using. I think this actually might have come with Happy Christmas, I can't remember. There's that many. But they come with 2 layering frames or backdrops to sit them on. So you can cut these separately and stack them, or if you cut them both together, you will get a tiny little frame, which could be really fun. But I'm just going to stack them one on top of the other. So I've got, again, double-sided adhesive here, and I'm going to stick this to a piece of card. And then I'm going to create a sheet of glitter. Now I could have, and I've done it both ways, cut out the smaller size and stuck it to the double-sided adhesive and then glittered round it, rather than glitter the whole piece and then have to stick this on top of it. But I'm going to do something different with this one. So I'm going to glitter the whole thing, and I've still got my glitter here, so I can use a brush and just pick that up. Burnish it down. You'll get much more sticking to your adhesive if you burnish it. If you just shake it on and shake it off, you won't get as good coverage. Now I do need a little bit more. So just spread it about and then give it a real good burnish. Okay. See that? Right. Move the mess again. So what I'm going to do with this one, because I've already cut my smaller lozenge shape, if you like, out of white card, so it's the bigger one I want to cut out of this piece. And while I'm doing it, I'm going to cut the Happy Birthday at the same time. So I'm going to cut that from the centre. I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. Just grab my die cutting machine, get that ready. Pop that on the die cutting machine and run it through. So this is going to cut that lozenge shape and the words all from the glitter. Okay, if I pop that out, you will find whenever you do this, it always wants to hang on a little bit more, so you have to be a bit more forceful to get it out. And then I've got Happy Birthday in the middle there as well, so pull that out. Now you might think, well, what on earth are you doing? That's awful, it's a mess. Well, yes it is, but now when I stick that onto the middle, you won't know that I've cut Happy Birthday out the middle of it, will you? So we're saving ourselves material and a step in the process. Now I am going to stick this on with glue because, as I said, we're going on to a full glitter surface, and it won't stick with double-sided tape. So, oops, I don't need it down the middle because I've got the words cut out there. So just around the edges, stick that on. And now so nobody would know that the words are missing out of the middle of that. Okay, and then get your happy birthday out of the die, and that goes on the middle. Now I won't do it because it takes a little while. With it being quite a delicate sentiment, and because it's through the adhesive, you do have to poke to get it out. So sorry, I just knocked the camera then. And it, you know, it can take a few minutes, so I'm not going to make you sit and watch me do that. So I'll put that to one side and I'll tackle that later because I do have one already done. And there we have it. Isn't that pretty? So we've got a matching border and a matching sentiment, and we only had to cut 2 panels. And that's just going to sit across the middle of our card. That's all we need to do. Alright, so I'll put some glue on this now. And then we can apply that to the centre. You could add more flowers if you wish to this, it's entirely up to you, but I didn't feel it needed too much more doing to it. Alright, so there we have a totally sparkly, totally gorgeous, and relatively straightforward to do card. So I hope that's given you a few ideas of what you can do with glitter, or at least some of the ideas you can do with glitter. I have more if we want to see more. Alright, just let me get rid of all this purple. Alright, thank you everybody, thank you all for joining me. It's lovely to have your company. As I say, I'm not going to chat too much tonight because I really want to crack on and show you as much as I possibly can. So let's have a look at some more ideas. So I've got here a piece of card, and I've got a really beautiful stencil, and I'm going to use these two to create a panel, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways that we can do this. So with this first one, I'm going to tape it down because I'm going to work with paste. So just to make sure it stays put and everything's nice and flat, I'm going to stick it down. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in Jamie's clear texture paste. I love this texture paste. It's really different from any I've worked with before, and I've worked with a lot. You can see how much I like it. My pot's nearly empty. Right, and all I'm going to do is run this through the stencil. So I'm going to start by applying a thick line at this short end of this stencil. So huge globs of it there. Don't worry, because anything you don't use does go back in the pot. And then I'm going to use a scraper, and I'm just going to draw that paste down through the stencil. Now you might need to go back and just fill in a few bits, that's okay. Or if you don't get on with this method, you can certainly spread the paste through the stencil all over and then just smooth it off with your scraper. It really doesn't matter, but it's quicker if you can do it with the scraper. So again, down, just some extra tricky bits here. Just going to do that one more time. Pick up as much as I can of the extra. Look at all that that's come off. Now that's going back in the pot. It's not wasted at all. Okay. Take off any extra that you can. Alright. Put that to one side. Put the lid on. And then I'm going to take this off. You do have to work relatively quickly. No need to panic, but you need to get your stencil in water. And now, oops, wrong side. Now we've got a really pretty pattern done in the clear texture paste. But what I want to do with this is add the glitter to it. So I'm just going to literally sprinkle glitter all over this to create a really beautiful effect. So I'm going to use this gorgeous aquamarine colour. Fall in love with this. Well, it's every time I use one I think, no, I like, that's my favourite. Oh no, that's my favourite. But they are really stunning, all of them. So I'm going to sprinkle about halfway, and then I'm going to just let it travel down. Oops. And it will pick up. Actually, it might be easier just to shake it all over. Let's do it properly, because otherwise I'm going to make a right old mess. No, there we go. And there we have our stencil design, full on glitter. Isn't that stunning? Just pop that to one side and let that dry. Now I want to do a different technique for you. And I was going to use the same stencil, but I've just put it in the water, so I'll use a different one. Another piece of card and another stencil. And I'm just going to take this quickly. Okay. And then on the blending mat, Jamie's blending mat, I'm going to create the texture paste actually mixed with the glitter. And you might think, well, what are you doing? Because you're just making gemstones texture paste. Well, I am if I add the same amount of glitter into the gemstones texture paste. But I'll tell you what, that texture paste holds an awful lot of glitter. And we can create anything from full strength to very little. So I've put about, I don't know, maybe a teaspoonful of the glitter on that, maybe a little bit more. And then I'm literally going to mix it into this texture paste. It's such fun to do this, honestly. And don't forget as well that you can be mixing your colours. What you'll find happens, I've actually got way too much. Let me get rid of some of the dry glitter off that. That's better. Right. Mix this in thoroughly. If you've mixed too much, either get another stencil ready or have a separate little pot that you can seal and you can keep it and use it again. Right, and then I'm just going to spread this now through my stencil. You'll find that you get a less intense concentration of glitter when you do this, and it is a different effect, and it's really nice to have that option. And I think it's fab that we've got the matching glitter to the texture paste, because you can work through your project and make everything complement, can't you? So you can create things at different strengths, different concentrations. You can mix your own custom colours, which is incredibly exciting. And it's just great fun. It's like chemistry. Most people say, I don't like chemistry. This is when chemistry is fun. Whoops. So we'll just make sure we've completed all of that. I would have got my scraper on the job. Let me just get some more paper under this and then I can clean it up properly. So as I say, I probably mixed a bit too much there, but it's all good. I'll save it and do something else with it. So let's pop this down, bring back the scraper, and let's just do a quick pass over. There we go. Alright, pop that in water. Let's get the stencil off. Oh, I've just cut my nails, it's fatal, I can't catch hold of anything. Right, it's in there. Put that somewhere. clean that. It does wipe off quite easily, but you can always drop it in water and it just dissolves away. Right, so there we have our self-mixed piece, and it's a different effect than when you put the loose glitter onto the texture paste, because it sits on top. This is actually embedded within, and when it dries you get a variation in concentration. It just naturally sort of happens. So if I bring back the one we did with the glitter, can you see how much stronger that is than that? It's a different effect, and when that's dried, because the texture paste is glossy, it'll have a beautiful sheen and the glitter is kind of encapsulated within it. So really beautiful effects. Okay, so that's another idea. Right, let me just scoop some of this glitter back. So I hope this is, oops, oh dear. Well, that was a waste of time, wasn't it? It's because I'm rushing, you see. Never rush. It's not worth it. It's that old adage, isn't it? More haste, less speed. So true. Right. Let's just put that somewhere to deal with later. Okay. I do love mixing things up and making my own lotions and potions. I think it's great. Okay, so where would I go with this? Well, the initial one that I did with the glitter mixed into the texture paste, this one's quite a lot lighter, can you see? So it also means you can create shades of the glitter. You can have going light to dark, and I decided I was going to chop it up and use it in a different way. So I got some pale aqua coloured cardstock. I'm sorry, Jamie, it's not yours. I couldn't find a colour that went with this quite so well. So I decided I would emboss the card so it wasn't so plain. So I've used the same stencil, can you see that? So match the pattern, it runs all the way through, and then I've got this embossed, dry embossed, and this done with the texture paste. So let's stick those two together. And then I'm going to go back to a technique I did a couple of weeks ago, and I know some of you probably didn't see it, so it'll be nice to show you again, and apologies to those of you who have seen it already, but this is always good to refresh your memory as well, isn't it, with things. So let's get the borders fairly even, and I'll just set that aside to dry. So what I wanted to do was bring in a dragonfly. So the dragonfly came out, this is the Elegant Dragonflies, and these came out with the patchwork collection. So I've already cut this from a piece of green card that had double-sided adhesive attached to it. So die cut that, and then I'm going to use the glitter to colour the dragonfly. But I wanted a mix of glitter because this is turquoise, so it's neither green nor blue. And yes, I could use the aquamarine glitter, but I wanted my dragonfly to be a little bit more special than that. So I'm going to do that thing I did a couple of weeks ago where I actually mixed the glitters. Now if you remember this one, this was the purple, the amethyst, and the Christmas green, the emerald green glitter mixed together. So I wanted to do that again, but with some different colours. So I am going to use the aquamarine, but I'm also going to bring in the emerald green, because in my head that's sort of dragonfly's colours. So a little pile of green and a little pile of aquamarine. This has already been mixed, I'm just adding to it now. So equal ish amounts, and then I'm literally going to stir them together to mix. And actually I'm going to bring in a tiny bit of the rose quartz as well, just because I can, just a little bit. And then just literally keep mixing, and I sort of like to gather it back together and then mix a bit more, so that all the particles are really, really well mixed, and you're not going to get patches of one and patches of another. I want it to be all over, but I want it to be, you know, to vary across the dragonfly. Right, so I've got to get the backing off my double-sided adhesive now. So now I've got my sticky dragonfly, and I'm going to dip that in the glitter, just so I've got something to get hold of, and then I'm going to use my brush to bring it up onto the dragonfly. Look at that! Wow. Oh, I wish you could see this. It's unbelievable, the sparkle of these glitters. So I'm burnishing this down with my finger. Make sure it's all really well adhered and stuck, and I've got as much as I can get on there. Then just a little tap, and just look at that. How beautiful is that? And it's neither green nor turquoise, it's in between. It's not one or the other. It's just spectacular. So that's how I did my variegated dragonfly, and that's what I'm going to use on this project. So what else have we got? So I've got my folded card here, and I've got my panel ready to go on. So let's apply this. Has anybody tried that mixed glitter technique? I'd love to see your creations with it if you have, because it really, it's going to make your glitters go further for one thing, and it's going to make your projects so much more exciting. So I hope you're going to give some of these ideas a go. Right, let's get this panel on. Not quite straight. Good job I'm using Jamie's glue, because you've got wiggle room with it, which is fabulous. Let's give that a really good press and make sure it's stuck. Okay, so there's the beginnings of our card, and then we know I've got a dragonfly, so that's here. And what I've also got are some of the lavish foliage. So I've got left and right, so I've got the original lavish foliage and the mirrored lavish foliage, and then I've got some of the star blooms. So I've already made these flowers, and I had a pearl in the centre of them, and I thought, well, that's the wrong colour. So what I'm going to do is bring back my fine nozzle glue bottle, and I'm just going to coat this pearl with the glue. Now I've found doing this is brilliant, because the glue sort of self-levels. You don't have to put a lot on. In fact, you don't want to put a lot on because it will puddle. But it does sort of self-level, so you can sort of scribble and scribble till it's coated. And again, this means if you've got odd colours of pearls and gems and things that you don't want to use, this is a great way to change them. I wouldn't normally put them in the flower first and then do this, but as I say, I had the flowers made, but the pearls were the wrong colour. So tap the glitter onto the centre. Tap off the excess. And now we've got perfectly matching centres to our flowers. Look at that! How cool is that? And it's changed it completely from how it was. I love that. I've just got a little stray bit I want to clean up. Rid of that. All right, so I think we're ready to go. So I want my foliage to go up there like so, and I think I'll have that one. Shall we have that one or shall we have that one? No, let's have them going the same way. Right, so I'm going to bring in, I'm using this fine glue bottle now because I love it, with Jamie's glue in it. I just decanted it out of the bigger bottle. Okay, so let's pop that going off to the right. Oops. And then this one going off to the right. I don't usually stick every bit of these stems down, I just do here and there. So I'm happy with it, and then we'll have that one going on to this panel a little bit. And now we can attach our flowers. So we'll have that one. Chuck it a bit further over that way. And then we'll have this one there. And then this lovely dragonfly, I've already curled the wings and shaped them and just lifted them away from the body. And that's going to be in and out of the foliage like so. And then I just wanted to attach a bit more foliage at the bottom. So I'm going to snip into this one, just about there, and then tuck it under this flower. Let's get it right under there. Okay. And there we have it, a beautiful sparkly card with all sorts going on, aren't we? Technique on technique on technique. So we have our glitter mixed into the texture paste before it's put through the stencil, so the crystal is embedded in there. We've got our mixed coloured dragonfly, which makes it complement the project perfectly, but gives it a little bit more oomph. If I'd done it in exactly the same colour as this, it would have probably blended in a bit too much. Then we've got our flower centres also done to complement. So there we have it. Isn't that lovely? So that's another idea with glitters. Okay, I hope that's given you food for thought. I had great fun preparing all of those. So I hope you've picked up some tips and something that you feel you can use. Thank you so much. You're all very kind. I am clocking the comments as I can. But as I say, I really want to press on and cover as much ground as I possibly can tonight. So forgive me for not engaging as much as you might like, but there we are. So one of the other questions I was asked was, let me make sure I've done everything. Yes, I think I have. So that was from our lovely Christiana. She'd asked about how to put glitter on Mother Christmas, and she got a lot more than she bargained for, so I hope you enjoyed that, Christiana. Next, our question came from our lovely Kim Mole, and I know Kim's with us tonight, so hi Kim. Kim's question was, she doesn't know how or where to start creating a little book. When I first saw this, I thought, oh, I don't know if I can do that. It's not really in keeping with Jamie's products. I mean, I make loads of books, but I just wondered if, you know, it was perhaps not appropriate. And then I thought, do you know what? Let's challenge myself. Let's make it work, because we've got some fantastic products, and it's amazing what you can do when you limit yourself, actually, when you don't have access to everything, because that can be overwhelming. You get to a point where you just don't know where to start, and I'm going to come back to that because that was one of the other questions. So I'm going to start to create a little book. The only thing I've cheated with is that I've used a print that came off my jelly plate, and I had it lying around, and I thought, well, why not use that for the book cover? If you hadn't got something like that, you could stick a piece of fancy paper to a piece of card, and then, you know, this is going to be the book cover. So this is the only way I've cheated. But I've used Jamie's scalloped rectangles to cut this panel out, and this is going to make my book cover. So what I need to do now is fold this in half, and it's great because the scallops line up so perfectly. It makes it a doddle to fold it in half properly. I could have scored it, you know, I would have had to measure it and score it, but it's fine. So I'm just going to press the fold in, and now from a rectangle die we've created what could be a folded card, but this is going to be a book cover. Okay, then I used Jamie's plain rectangles, and I found a size that was slightly smaller than this one in the plain edge. See how it just sits inside? So for my book pages this is perfect. So I'm going to fold this in half. Okay, and I've done 6 of those. So I got some copy paper, cut them in half, stacked 6 together, and then die cut the rectangle with the plain edge through them all at the same time, and it coped with it really well. So put them all together, make sure they're all really well bedded inside each other, and that is going to go inside our book. Now, how do we attach these? So I'm going to show you a quick bookbinding technique. So we need to create a template. So I've got a piece of card and I've cut it to the same, or almost the same width as my cover, and I've measured the centre, and then I've measured the half of that again, and I've made 3 little pencil marks. Now for this you're going to need something with a sharp point. I've got a proper bradawl here, which is what they use for piercing holes. You're going to need some bookbinding thread, bookbinding cotton, something really strong. This is called Nile Bond, and it's a bonded cotton thread which is really super strong, so you don't want something that's going to snap. You can also get waxed thread, that's really good for bookbinding as well. And then you're going to need a bodkin needle or a bookbinding needle. The beauty of these is that the eye is no wider than the stem of the needle, so it will go through holes without making them that much bigger. So I've already got mine threaded, and I'm ready to sew. So first of all, I'm going to put my pages inside my book. You can clamp these together if you want to. I'm just going to go for it. Line up your template, and then it's really important that you do this with the book closed, because that way, so I've got my bradawl now pointing out my first hole, and I'm pushing it through and it's coming out. Can you see it there? So if I did that with the book open, that needle would come out through the front or the back of the book, but by doing it with the book shut, it comes out right through the spine. So that's important. Then I'm going to move along to the next hole and close the book and push the bradawl through. Okay. And then I'm going to do my third hole. And push that through. Okay. Then I'm going to remove the template, and if you're going to make books the similar size, you can keep that and use it again. I'm going to push the bradawl in, and I'm going to keep it in. That's just going to make sure everything stays in place while I get my thread sorted out. So I'm going to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I'm going to go in to the centre, and you pull it through and leave quite a good end on the inside so that you've something to hang on to. Okay, then I'm going to come back through this stitch hole, and basically what you do is a figure of 8. So now I'm going to go back out through the middle hole again. Try not to split your thread when you do this. So what I tend to do is move it to one side and put the needle to the side of the thread and then back through the hole. If you split your thread, it can't move freely. Okay, so we've got those two done. Now I can take this out, and we're going to come back in through the bottom hole. Like that. Then you need to make sure everything's pulled up really nice and tight. And then what I'm going to do is just tie a knot to finish this off. Okay, so I'm going to cut the end off, and I'm going to tie a knot there. Double knot, put your finger on it, tie it again. You can do it where the ends stay to the outside, or you can do it with the ends on the inside. It's entirely up to you. And then just trim your ends, and there you've got a little sewn book with 12 pages ready to do whatever you want to do with it. So I thought I'd show you how I incorporated Jamie's products into this little booklet, because after all, that is why we're here. So I decided I was going to use this beautiful crushed velvet paper of Jamie's because the colour was so perfect with this jelly print that I'd fetched out of my stash. And then I thought, well, I always like to have a tag, so I brought in the tags which are from the Christmas collection. I don't know if there's back in stock those or not. Perhaps Jamie could let us know if he's got these back in stock, but I wanted a tag. I also wanted a pocket. So for me, you know me and my triangles, this was the perfect solution to create a pocket. So I've got my right angled triangles die set. I've also used the vintage travel tags and the matching dies to these. So that's where I started from. Those were all the components. I had some other bits and bobs. So I've got foliage, and I've got threads and fibres, and I've also got, from the rectangles, I've used the smallest rectangle with the scalloped edge and the pierced to create this little band, this little thing that I'm going to utilise. So those are all the components that I've used to decorate the book cover. So let me show you what I did. So first of all, I cut a tag from cardstock, and then I cut a tag from the crushed velvet paper, and I stuck those two together. And then I stenciled on top of it using distress ink, and it worked so well. I mean, I know it says you can stamp on these papers, you can ink on these papers, you can spray on them, they're fabulous. It's just like, it'll take it all. It's really, really cool. What I also did was use the eyelets, but I used them to create a reinforcer, and I discovered that if you use the largest and the smallest, one sits perfectly inside the other, like so. And then what I did, I got a piece of sticky tape and picked them up together like that, and that then made it so easy to cut it. So I cut that from the brown craft paper and inked it, and I've got my reinforcer on my tag there. So that's how I made the tag. So that was all fairly straightforward. So I love that about the eyelets, that's how they work and fit together. And then with the triangle, I still had some pieces left from the gel plate print. So I've cut myself a little triangle, and I wanted to make a pocket to go on the front of the book. So that's what that's about. And I decided it needed inking. I'm going to get a bit grungy here. So I've inked around the edges of the book, and I'm now going to ink around the edges of the pocket. But the thing about this, because the jelly plate print was done in chalk inks, so it absorbs the colour of the distress ink and tones it down completely. So although I'm using walnut stain, which is quite a strong dark brown, it softens it to a lovely sort of gentle brown. I've also inked all around the edges of the tag with the same colour, and that paper has taken it on beautifully. I really love that. So this was my starting point. I thought, right, there we are, we've made a start. We've got a pocket and we've got a tag, and I've got this thing, this rectangle that I cut. Don't know whether I want to put that on the pocket. I don't know whether I want to put it across the tag, but I've got it. I don't have to use it. You could put a sentiment strip, a word, you could stamp something on it. Entirely up to you. Then I decided I was going to bring in some little tags from the travel collection. So I've got the travel collection, and oh no, I just dropped my eyelet on the floor. I've stamped these onto that gorgeous paper, and I've inked around the edge. Oh, my eyelet has gone. Where's it gone? I don't know. I've lost it. Oh well, never mind. It was good while it lasted. So, yeah, I've stamped on them, and I used Versafine Clair for that because it's a nice strong brown. And then I've inked with, again, the walnut stain, just to emphasise those edges, really. Make them stand out a bit. So I've got my 2 tags ready to go. And then I still have some paper left from the gel print. So I've cut the foliage from that. And the idea was it was going to go something like that. But it's all blending into one at the moment. So I decided I would ink it and bring out the green a little bit more. So I brought in Jamie's Chameleon Green and a blending brush. Just pick up some ink, tap off the excess. I don't want it too heavily green, and then just gently accent the leaves with a bit of green, but I don't want to obliterate that lovely jelly print pattern. So again, I'm just tapping towards the edges, maybe a little bit more here and there, so that you can see how that's changed the colour of that completely, but I've still got that lovely pattern from the print that I've taken. So can you see that? But again, it kind of absorbs the ink, so it all goes very chalky and matte, but that's fine, I don't mind that. So I've got one that's going to go on there somewhere, probably like that, and then I did another one, which was this one, and I thought that might be nice if I tucked it behind, something like that. So I'm starting to get there, I'm starting to build my tag. Then I had some flowers from, again, those lovely star blooms, and I thought, well, they can go on the tag, something like that. And then where are these going to go? So on the pocket, like that. And this one can go on there. And it's now beginning to come together. It's beginning to become a composition. So I've still got my fibres that I rustled out from, if you're like me, you've got packets and packets of ends of ribbons that you keep because you might need one for a knot, or you might need one for a tag top, or, you know, they're going to come in. So I've got bags and bags of ribbon, and I've fished some out, found a good colour that matches. And then the last thing I've put towards this is a little vintage safety pin, and this is to attach this. Which way did I do it? I think I decided I wanted it to go that way, and then put a little hole through there so it can sit nice and flat. That's it. Just pin that together, and then that can just dangle. But I still don't know whether I want to put this, I don't think I want it there now, but I think I might want it on my tag. So what I'm going to do, pop that across the tag like that. Now let's have a look. Yes, I like that. So that's all my elements that I need. So I'm going to stick this on the tag. And this was just really making myself work with Jamie's products, because that's what I'm here to do, but to do something that's perhaps a little bit different. You know, this is something I would do, but I would never have thought I'd be able to do it if I just said, oh, I haven't got anything to do it with in Jamie's products. But actually, of course we have, because we've got everything we need to do any sort of project you want. This is just a very different way of looking at them. So there's our tag. Now it's got that belly band, and it just breaks up that strong pattern a little bit, doesn't it? I think I need to get my pocket in place, so let's have a fine line of glue. Now don't forget, if it's a pocket, by definition it needs an opening, so don't glue all three sides, only glue two. If you hold a pocket by the edge that you want to stay open, then it'll remind you not to glue that edge. And I did mention before that when I'm doing pockets I always use wet glue, because wet glue dries. If you use double-sided tape, it's always sticky. It doesn't change its state because it's a dry adhesive and it stays dry. So it's better to use a wet glue, because that way when it dries it's no longer sticky. So when you are putting things in and out of pockets, they don't stick to the edge of the tape that's still in there, and it's still sticky. So that's my theory. Alright, and then let's stick this foliage down. I just think these foliages are so beautiful, and they look so different cut from a different type of paper. I mean, you might have seen me a couple of weeks ago when I did some of these completely glittered, and they were gorgeous. They're just so versatile. They're brilliant. And I think sometimes the problem is we have that much stuff that we get the overwhelm, don't we? I call it the overwhelm, when you just don't know what to do because you've that much. And so I think it's really good sometimes to either challenge yourself or set yourself a limit as to what you can use, how many you can use, or stick to a colour or something like that. And then you've got to try and work within that. And this was really good for me. It was a really good exercise. So I hope it's something that you might try as well. So yes, I'm going to pop that there. And I know our lovely Sheila asked, you know, how, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to start, I want to make some cards, I don't know where to start. And it's a common thing, and I think it's just because we have so much stuff. And we sit down and we look at it and we stroke it and we move it around and we go, yes, it's all very beautiful, but there's too much. And so it stops us actually enjoying our crafting, doesn't it? So limit yourself. Maybe only allow yourself maybe 5 items, or maybe stick to a colour scheme. But one of the things I often do is start with a tag. If I'm stuck, my mojo's gone west, which it sometimes does, I just do a tag. I love making tags, and you can make tags really beautiful. You can do lots of embellishing on a tag, you can do lots of stamping, you can cover them with lovely paper. I mean, it's endless, isn't it, what you can do. So that's a great way to start as well if you are, you know, having a bit of a blank. So let's get these flowers down. I'll have that one. It's stuck to the tag, but it's just overlapping the edge of the pocket. So if we want to, you can remove this tag. I'm not going to actually stick the tag down. And let's have that one there. And then let's put this little ticket in place. And just go into there. So I'm just going to glue half of it. So put it under that flower and under that tag. There we are. Okay, and then we can still remove the tag. I just want to put some fibres through the top of it. So this one, it's quite a chunky sort of cord, or it's a bit fluffy, I tend to just literally feed one end through and just fold it double. And then I've got this second one here that I'll probably just do the same with. So let's cut a length of that. I'll pop that through as well. So I've now got two sorts of fibres that are just fed through the hole. So in order to keep those in place, I've got a cord, and I'm just going to knot this around them. This is an easy way to do a tag top, and I always do this if I've got funky fibres, because it can be awkward to do a, you know, when you do the tails through the loop. So I just do a simple knot. It's quite stiff, this, and then just pull those up, and then pull that up. Do a little knot, and then you can splay them out as you like. Pull those ends up, then they can be part of it as well. Okay, that's a bit too long, shorten that one. There we are. So we've got our tag top done. Pull those out, feather them out a bit. It's a bit scruffy looking, quite like that idea. And now we can pop that in there. Comme ça. And there you have it, a little mini book with a beautifully decorated cover done from a jelly print that I had hanging about. It'd been hanging about for a long time and I just hadn't found a use for it. So thanks for the suggestion, that came in really well timed. The tag, as we say, you can take that in and out. If you don't want to, then obviously you can stick it down once you've got everything else assembled. And then we've got all our pages inside there to decorate. So I hope that's given you a spark, given you something that you can set off with, hopefully, Kim. And have a go at the pamphlet stitching, because it's a really easy way to make lovely little books. And if you're making things to sell, this is a really fabulous place to start. I think if somebody saw that on your table, they would absolutely go for it. The fact that, you know, they can do whatever they want inside there, I think is just lovely. You can even make a nice little box for it, a cover for it, or something like that. So there we go, that's my little mini book idea. Now, something else that I was asked about was from the lovely Jennifer Shaw. So I don't know if Jennifer's with us in the house, but Jennifer's question was, how do you know what colours go together? When you're doing a background and you're using ink pads, how do you choose what colours are going to go together? Well, there is no easy answer, because you've either got an eye for colour or you haven't. And you might know your colour theory, which certainly helps, but there's nothing better than experience. I would definitely recommend that you get yourself a colour wheel if you struggle with colour. So this is based on primary colours. So you've got your red, green, well, green's not strictly speaking a primary. You've got red, yellow and blue, and then you've got green, which is a mixture of yellow and blue, but they consider it as a complementary colour in this scenario. So if you struggle to find colours, a colour wheel is a brilliant place to start, because it gives you the complementary colours, which are opposites. So if you're wanting to use red, the opposite to red is green. If you're wanting to use blue, the opposite to blue is orange. And you might think, yeah, blue and orange work well together. I know they do. So that's a great place to start. But then you can also do split complementaries. So what that means is, let me just get this the right way around. If you have blue, the split complementaries are the ones either side of the contrast or the complementary, the opposite. So you can go opposite, or you can go either side of opposite. So if you go blue, you can go to red orange, or you can go to yellow orange, and they're all going to work together. So that might help if you do struggle. Obviously there are lots of secondary colours as well, but I don't want to get too technical, because it does, you know, it can boggle the mind a bit. But what I thought I might do is a quick background for you, using 3 colours of distress based on those principles. So I've got a 5.5 by 5.5 inch square card, and I've got 3 colours of distress ink, which you might think at first, ooh, they don't go together. The beauty of distress ink is that no matter what you blend, they just work, because you get the secondary colours where the 2 individual colours blend and make a mix. So that makes it really easy to do a background. The other thing I would say is start with your palest colour first. So I'm going to start with dried marigold. And the other thing about doing a background is make sure that your ink blending tool is nice and juicy. If it's too dry, you're never going to get a blend happening. I'm using Jamie's Polar White card, which is fantastic. It takes inks really nicely. And I'm just going to blend into 3 areas with the dried marigold. My phone is disintegrating. It's not great. So 3 colours, 3 patches, like that. Okay, so that's the first one. The next one I'm going to put on is Evergreen Bough. And I'm going to come right next to that first colour, and I'm going to deliberately blend across the border, because that's when the blend happens. So I'm going to come across the centre, and I'm going to go into each of those patches of the orange, and then I'm going to come to this side, and I'm going to come into the orange. And can you see how we're getting a 3rd colour here? And that's how the blending works. It's because you're getting that 3rd colour that's a blend of the first 2. And so they're always going to work no matter what you put together. There's very little that can go wrong. So I would say just maybe, you know, just without thinking too much, grab 3 colours. Just grab 3 colours and use them and see what you get. So I'm going to finish off with Faded Jeans, which is a bit of an odd one out, because it's very, very blue. But I'm going to bring that into the corner. Now when I go into the Evergreen Bough, we get a blue-green. And when I come into the dried marigold, we get a yellow-green. So it's just working, and it's going back to that colour wheel where you get the complementary and the contrasting colours. And then you get your sort of secondary shades happening as well. Can you see how that's now all coming together? And those were 3 really quite odd shades when you saw them individually. You probably wouldn't think to put them together, but they work really, really well. But just make sure, this is really important, that your pads are really juicy. If your ink pads are dry, it's never going to work. So your pads have to be nice and juicy. And you have to blend across the boundaries between the colours. That's really key. And then I tend to go back then and strengthen up the colours once I've got my first layer down. And can you see I've got no blobs, no marks, no streaks, no harsh lines where I've gone down with the blending pad, because I've got it nice and juicy. So that's really key to blending a background. So I hope that helps, Jennifer. I hope I've answered your question, or at least begun to. It's a massive subject, colour, isn't it? So, you know, I'm never going to be able to cover it in an evening like this. But if that's just giving you perhaps a little bit of confidence to just have a go with a few colours, stick to 3. I wouldn't go more than 3. That's another thing. Otherwise it can all get a little bit confused and muddy, and that's never good, is it? So let's just have a look at what that looks like now. Okay, so we've got quite a nice blend happening there. There are no streaks, no marks. It's all blended together, and we've got secondary colours between each of the sections where those colours are pulling it all together. So there we are. Have a go. Gwen says, have a go. Don't be scared. It is scary at first, because we're always scared of doing something wrong, aren't we? But it's not wrong, is it? It's learning. It's learning and developing, and the only way you can do that is by doing things that aren't absolutely perfect. So there we go. Now the other thing was Sheila. As I said, Sheila Kelly had asked for some tips on where to start when you're making a card. Well, I would say, as I've already mentioned, stick to 5 things. I'll only allow yourself 5 things, and it might be a piece of card, like a background that you've already done. So for instance, you might have something like this knocking about. Choose that. All right. Then you might want to have an embossing folder or a stencil. Take one of Jamie's stencils and maybe emboss this panel, and then maybe ink over the top, or put some texture paste over the top. So that's 2 things, and your texture paste, that's 3 things. Then perhaps you would need a die, a set of dies. So I'll let you have flowers and leaves, so you can have flowers and leaves, okay? And then perhaps a sentiment. Job done. 5 things. You've got enough there to make a card. And then next time try a different 5 things, or think you're going to stick to just blues or just lavenders and purples. Limit yourself. That's the key. Really seriously, we have too much to go at, and it is overwhelming, and we sit there with all this gorgeous stuff and we think, I don't know where to start. And it's not just you, Sheila. I hear this all the time in my shop. I have people in and they're like, I don't know what to do. I've got all this lovely stuff. I don't know where to begin. So I would definitely say limit yourself. When you sit down to craft, get yourself a little small bundle of products and stick to that. So you might decide you want to use some washi tape. You might decide you want to use a book page, or some music perhaps, and then you might want to add some fabric, some ribbon, or some fibre, something like that. But keep it to 5 things, and then as you go you might think, well actually I really need one more thing. That's okay. One more thing is allowable. But I would definitely say, if your mojo's gone west, sit down, restrict yourself. Or as I said, the other thing I do when my mojo goes somewhere else is a tag. I just love making tags, and I think because it's that small surface, it's not so daunting, is it? We're not having to think about filling the whole card front. But once you've made that tag, then it can quite easily sit on the front of a card, and you've got a beautiful tag, embellished however you choose to embellish it, and then you can sit that on a card. That could be a card. It doesn't have to be a book cover, does it? So there you go. Give it a go. Don't be frightened of, having a go. I think sometimes that's another thing. We talk ourselves out of it, don't we? Because we say, I can't do it, I don't know what to do, don't know where to start, and I'm not going to bother. Don't be frightened. Don't be overwhelmed. Follow those tips and just have a go. And please let me know how you go on. And please share what you make on the Create with Jamie Rodgers page. Oh no, sorry, we've gone on to the Creative Expressions page for that now, haven't we? So on there, if you share your makes on there, I'd love to see what you come up with. So let me come back to you. I've not said hello at all tonight, have I? Hi! I'm all sparkly. I've had a lovely time. So, I hope that's helped you all, those of you that asked questions. I'm sorry to those of you that didn't know about it and have only come in tonight and have asked questions. I can't possibly do everything in one night. But if you've enjoyed it and you'd like me to do it again, let us know. This is what we're here for. We're here to help you. We're here to inspire you. We want you to get the most out of all these gorgeous products that Jamie brings for us. So, yeah. Oh, hi, Portia. Yes. Oh, I've got a workshop on Saturday and Portia's coming along to that. So, yes, looking forward to it very much. So, are there any more questions? I'm so sorry I've not looked. Let me just have a quick scan. Oh gosh, Portia, you're packed already. Good for you. Oh, thank you all. Your comments are lovely. Uh, Hi, Dillis. Glad you've made it. So lovely to see you here. Um, yes, I'm the same, Sheila. I've got accumulated so much stuff, and it is the overwhelm that gets you, and it's because you've got so much stuff. So maybe pluck out your favourites, start with your favourite colour, just something like that, and just yeah, find the love again, find the joy in making instead of the fear of, I'm going to do it all wrong. It's not all wrong. It's just different. So, Jamie, well, go on. I want to see what you do. Jamie's going to make a book. Hi, Leslie. Good to have you with us. Oh, thanks all so much. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Oh, Emma, you've not lived, love. She's never bound a book before. I mean, that's a very simple book binding. I mean, I could go on, but that's not, you know, it's not going to fit, is it? So, thanks, Jamie. Hope that's been okay. Um, yeah, well, Jamie's got plans to bring me closer to some of you. Um, I don't know if you know, but I'm going to be going down to Poole in Dorset in August to a lovely shop called Craft Bliss, doing a demo day for them. So if that's near where any of you are, perhaps make it a day out. That would be great. And it would be lovely to meet some of you face to face. And failing that, I think he's going to be having me down to the warehouse. So keep your eyes peeled for dates in the diary because they're coming up shortly. So I can't tell you any more news as yet, but there is so much exciting stuff going on in the background, so many exciting reveals to come up. So stay with us, you don't want to miss it. So I'm going to wish you all a very good evening. Thank you so much for your company, and as always, be kind to each other, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Hello, Gwen here from Jamie Rodgers Crafts. I've come along to give you a correction to the bookbinding I showed you in my live on Thursday night. So I do apologise, but I did make a mistake and I wanted to come along and correct it for you in case you'd like to have a go. So here we go. We have our book cover, which was cut with Jamie's scalloped edge rectangle from a piece of jelly plate card, and that was then folded in half to create the cover. The pages were cut with Jamie's plain edge rectangles in a slightly smaller size, and these were cut from copy paper, 6 pieces. That offers us 12 pages when folded in half. And those are going to sit within the cover. So we're going to do a pamphlet stitch, and to do this you need to create yourself a cardboard template that is the same width as the cover, or certainly just about the same. And you're going to fold that, and then you're going to find the midpoint, and then the midpoint again of that half, in other words the quarter, and then the same at the other side. Once you pop that inside your cover, you can then use your bradawl
to go through the template and make the holes in the cover. So I've already come through the spine there using the template. You can then pop the pages in and do the same with that. Line up the holes, line up the dots, and then pierce through your pages. Or you can do it all in one go if you've got a fairly strong grip. But I did show this correctly in the video. It was the stitching that I got a bit muddled up with, so I am so sorry about that. So I have here some very strong binding cord, binding thread. And what I need to do is start in the middle hole. I'm going to go through the hole in the pages and through the hole in the cover. And I'm going to pull the thread through, leaving a tail on the inside that I can hold on to. Then I'm going to come back through and I'm just going to secure the cover by pushing the bradawl through my pages and through the other hole in the cover, and that just keeps everything nicely lined up. So I can come back now through the top hole. Hang on, might have to turn that round. That wasn't fitting very well. There we go, that's better, it's all lined up now. So through the middle and hold the tail on the inside, and then come through one of the side holes, it doesn't matter which one, and pull that up, but make sure you don't pull your tail out through the centre. Then what you do is go from the top hole to the bottom hole and from inside out, and then you come back through the middle hole to the inside again. So make sure everything's pulled up nice and tight so the holes line up, otherwise you'll have difficulty getting that through. Sometimes you need to go through the cover first and then go through the pages if it's not quite lined up. Okay, so now we've got our two ends on the inside and we want one end either side of that central thread. Now we can cut the ends and we can tie a knot. I'll just do a double knot like that. If you feel your papers are a little fragile, perhaps you're using handmade paper or something like that, you can add a little dot of glue to these holes just to help strengthen so they're not going to split as the book's in use. And there we have a really neat, almost invisible pamphlet stitch. If you want to do it the other way around, you can start your stitching from the outside and leave the tail on the outside. Then you would go in through, out through this hole, back in through this hole, and then back out through the middle. And then your two ends would be on the outside. And that's quite nice if you want to dangle something, a charm or something like that on the spine. So I hope that's a little bit clearer than it was on the live on Thursday. Again, apologies because I did make mistakes, but it was all a bit mashing my head, shall we say. All right, so have a go. Show me your makes. I'd love to see what you create. Thank you so much. Bye for now.